everyone, welcome back to Extra Rise English Podcast, the show that helps you level up your English one real conversation at a time. I am Mia.
And I am Leo. So glad you're here.
Okay, so today we're talking about something that a lot of students deal with, but almost nobody prepares for. You are in university. Maybe it's your first international class. Maybe you have a professor who only speaks English. Maybe you're studying abroad or in a program where all the instruction is in English. And at some point, you need to actually talk to your professor, ask a question, clarify an assignment, maybe even push back on a grade, and you have absolutely no idea how to do it without sounding rude or weird or completely lost.
And the stakes feel really high because this is your professor. This is the person who grades you, the person who writes your recommendation letters, the person who decides whether you pass or fail.
Right, so you just avoid the conversation entirely. You sit with the confusion, you submit the assignment hoping you understood it correctly, you get the grade back, and then realize you absolutely did not understand it correctly.
Which is a very expensive way to handle uncertainty.
A very expensive way, and totally unnecessary once you have the right language. So today, we're going to give you exactly that. 3 situations: how to ask a question in class, how to send a professional email to your professor, and how to go to office hours without feeling like you're wasting their time.
3 situations every university student faces. 3 clear structures to handle all of them. Let's get into it. This is segment 1, why talking to professors feels so hard.
Leo, why is this so difficult? Because objectively, professors are there to help students. That's literally their job. But somehow, talking to them feels like approaching a very important person who is too busy for you.
Right, and there are a few reasons for that. The first one is cultural. In a lot of Asian educational systems, the teacher is an authority figure. You do not question them. You do not approach them casually. You listen, you follow, you respect. And that's not a bad value, but it creates a very specific challenge when you move into a Western or international academic environment, where professors actually expect you to ask questions, push back, and engage directly.
Yes, I remember the first time a professor said, "My door is always open. Come talk to me anytime." And I thought, that cannot possibly be true. That must just be something they say.
And it is true. In most international university settings, professors genuinely want students to come to office hours. They want questions. They want engagement. But students who were trained to be quiet and respectful read that open invitation as a polite formality and never show up.
Which puts them at a real disadvantage compared to students who just walk in and ask.
A significant disadvantage. The second reason it's hard is language. Even if you understand the cultural dynamic, you still need the specific words and phrases to do it correctly. There's a big difference between asking a question confidently and asking a question in a way that sounds confused, rude, or overly formal. And without those specific phrases, most students default to silence.
Right. It's not that they don't have questions. It's that they don't have the language to ask them in a way that feels right.
Exactly. So let's fix that. This is segment 2, the 3 situations. Situation number 1, asking a question in class. This is the one most students avoid the most because it's public. Everyone is watching. And if you phrase it wrong or stumble over the words, it feels embarrassing.
I have stayed silent in so many classes because of this. So many times I had a question and just didn't ask it.
And you were probably not alone. Half the class probably had the same question and was also staying silent. So the first thing to remember is if you have a question, someone else in that room has the same one. Asking it is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a service to everyone around you.
Okay, that reframe is really helpful. Asking is a service.
Right, and the structure for asking a question in class is simple. Soften, question, think. You open with a softener, a short phrase that signals respect and context. Then you ask the actual question clearly and directly. Then you close with a brief thank you or acknowledgement.
Okay, what do the softeners sound like?
Some of the most natural ones are, "Sorry, I just want to make sure I understood correctly," or "I have a quick question about what you just said," or "Could you clarify something for me?" All of these signal that you're engaged, that you are listening, and that you're asking in good faith, not challenging, not confused because you weren't paying attention, genuinely curious.
Right, the softener does a lot of social work before the actual question even arrives.
Exactly. So a full example would sound like this. Sorry, I just want to make sure I understood correctly. When you said the assignment needs primary sources, does that include academic journals or only books?
Oh, that's so clear. It's specific, it's respectful, and it tells the professor exactly what you're confused about. Let me try one. I have a quick question about the deadline you mentioned. Is the submission date the same for all sections or just ours?
Perfect. Softener, I have a quick question about. Question, specific and direct. No unnecessary words, no over-apologizing, just a clear, confident ask.
And honestly, it doesn't feel scary when you have the structure. It feels manageable.
That's exactly what structures do. They take something that feels overwhelming and make it feel manageable. Okay, situation number 2. Sending a professional email to your professor. This one trips a lot of students up because the tone is tricky. Too casual and you sound disrespectful. Too formal and it sounds stiff and strange. The goal is professional but warm.
Right, and I think a lot of students either go way too casual, "Hey professor, so I had a question," or way too formal, "Dear most esteemed professor, I humbly write to you today."
And both of which are wrong in different directions.
Both very wrong.
So the structure for a professional email to a professor is this: greeting, context, question or request, thank you, sign off. 5 beats. Let me walk through each one. Greeting. Dear Professor and their last name. Not hey, not hi. Dear Professor Chen. Dear Professor Santos. Always last name unless they have specifically told you to use their first name.
Which does happen in some international settings.
It does, but when in doubt, last name. Context. One sentence that reminds them who you are and what class you're in. Something like, I'm a student in your Tuesday morning business English class. This is important because professors teach multiple classes with hundreds of students, and they can't always connect your name to a face immediately.
Right, you're not being presumptuous by reminding them who you are. You're actually being helpful.
Exactly. Then the question or request. Keep it to one thing. One clear, specific question or one specific request. Not 3 questions in one email, not a vague, I wanted to ask about the assignment, but a specific, I wanted to ask whether the case study needs to be based on a local company or whether international companies are also acceptable.
One thing, specific, clear.
Then, thank you, a short, genuine closing line. Something like, thank you so much for your time, or I really appreciate your help with this. And finally, the sign-off, best regards or sincerely, followed by your full name.
Okay, can we put that all together into one example email?
Sure. Dear Professor Santos, I'm a student in your Tuesday morning business English class. I wanted to ask a quick question about the upcoming case study assignment. The instructions mention using a real company as the basis for our analysis. I wanted to clarify whether the company needs to be based locally or whether international companies are also acceptable. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your response. Best regards, Leo.
That's so clean. It's professional, it's warm, it's specific, and it's short. Professors are busy people. A short, clear, well-structured email is so much better than a long, rambling one.
And it shows that you respect their time, which actually makes them more likely to respond quickly and helpfully.
Okay, pause. If that email structure just made you think, oh, that's how you do it, this is exactly the kind of practical English we bring you every single week. If you're not subscribed yet, hit subscribe right now so the next episode lands directly in your feed the moment it drops.
Okay, situation number 3, going to office hours.
This is the one students avoid the most, even more than asking questions in class, because it feels so personal. It's just you and the professor, one-on-one, no crowd to disappear into.
And a lot of students feel like they're bothering the professor, like they should only go if they have a really serious problem. But that's not true. Office hours exist for any question, big or small.
Right. You can go because you didn't understand a concept. You can go to get feedback on a draft. You can go to talk about your grade. You can even go just to introduce yourself and build a relationship, which is actually something professors really appreciate.
And the students who go to office hours consistently are almost always the ones who end up with stronger grades, better recommendations, and more opportunities. Not because professors play favorites, but because those students understand the material better and feel more confident in the class.
Okay, so what does a good office hours visit sound like? Like, what do you actually say when you walk in?
So the structure is simple. Opening, reason, question, thank you. You open by greeting them and confirming it's a good time. Something like, "Hi, Professor Santos. Thanks for having office hours today. Do you have a few minutes?" Then you state your reason. "I wanted to get some clarity on the feedback you gave for my last assignment." Then you ask your specific question. "You mentioned that my argument needed more evidence. I wanted to ask if you could point me to the kind of sources you had in mind." Then you close with a genuine thank you. "This was really helpful. Thank you so much for your time."
And that whole thing could take 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out visit.
It really doesn't. 5 focused minutes in office hours is worth more than an hour of confused studying on your own.
Okay, I want to try the opening. "Hi, Professor Santos. Thanks for having office hours today. Do you have a few minutes? I had a question about the assignment feedback you gave last week."
Perfect. Warm, respectful, specific. And notice, she asked, "Do you have a few minutes?" not, "Do you have time for me?" The phrasing, "a few minutes," signals that she is aware of their time and she is not going to take up too much of it. That small detail makes a big difference.
I never would have thought about that on my own. The phrasing of "do you have a few minutes" versus "do you have time?" Such a small difference, but it completely changes the impression.
Small language choices create big impressions. That is true in every professional setting. Okay, let us do the phrases. This is the key phrases section.
3 phrases from today, all of them immediately usable. Leo, first one.
Phrase number 1. Just to make sure I understood correctly. This is a softener. It comes before a clarifying question, and it does something really important. It signals that you were paying attention and that your question comes from genuine engagement, not confusion because you were not listening.
Right. It's a very different vibe from, "Wait, what did you say?" or "I do not understand."
Completely different vibe. Just to make sure I understood correctly positions you as an active, thoughtful listener who wants to get it right. You can use it in class. Just to make sure I understood correctly, is the deadline Friday or Monday? You can use it in a meeting. Just to make sure I understood correctly, the budget for this project has already been approved. You can use it in any situation where you want to clarify something without sounding lost.
I love this phrase because it protects you. Even if you completely misunderstood something, this phrase makes it sound like you were following along and just need a small clarification.
Which is exactly what you need sometimes. Phrase number 2. I wanted to ask about. This is the cleanest way to introduce a question in a professional or academic setting. It's more polished than, "I have a question," and less stiff than, "I am writing to inquire about." It sits right in the middle, professional and natural at the same time.
Right. I wanted to ask about the assignment format. I wanted to ask about the feedback on my essay. I wanted to ask about the reading for next week. It works for literally anything.
And it works in emails, in office hours, in class, in meetings. It's one of those phrases that travels well across different professional situations. Phrase number 3. I really appreciate your time. Or, "Thank you so much for your time." This one sounds simple, but it's consistently underused, especially by students who rush out of office hours or end emails abruptly.
Right. Closing strongly is just as important as opening strongly.
Exactly. "I really appreciate your time" signals maturity and professionalism. It tells a professor, "I know your time is valuable and I don't take it for granted." And that impression sticks, especially when they're writing your recommendation letter 6 months later.
Okay, listeners, 3 phrases. Just to make sure I understood correctly, I wanted to ask about, I really appreciate your time. Say those out loud right now. Pause, say them. That's your first practice. All right, segment 3, the drill. 3 scenarios, 3 responses, all of them out loud. Let's go. Leo, ready?
Ready.
Scenario 1. You're in class. Your professor just finished explaining a new concept, something about how to structure a research argument. You think you understood it, but you're not 100% sure. What do you say?
I would say,
Sorry, just to make sure I understood correctly, when you say the argument needs to be structured around the central claim, does that mean we state the claim at the very beginning of the paper, or is it something we build toward through the essay?
Oh, that's such a good question. And notice how specific it is. He's not asking, can you explain that again? Which is vague and puts all the work on the professor. He's asking about one specific thing, where the claim goes, which shows he understood most of it and just needs clarity on one point.
Right. The more specific your question, the more useful the answer, and the more it shows the professor that you were actually engaged with what they said.
Okay, say that out loud, listeners. Sorry, just to make sure I understood correctly, and then add your own specific question. Pause and try it now. Scenario 2. You just got your essay back and you didn't do as well as you expected. You want to send your professor an email asking for feedback so you can improve on the next one. What does the email sound like?
It would go something like this. Dear Professor Chen, I'm a student in your Wednesday afternoon academic writing class. I received my essay grade this week and I wanted to ask about the feedback. I can see from your comments that my analysis section needed more depth. I wanted to ask if you could point me toward what a stronger analysis might look like, or if there are any resources you would recommend to help me improve that area. I really appreciate your time and I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, Leo.
That email is so good. And notice the tone. He's not defensive about the grade. He's not asking the professor to change it. He's asking how to get better. That's the kind of email that gets a fast, helpful, detailed response.
Because it shows maturity. You're taking responsibility for your learning. You're not looking for someone to blame. You're looking for a way forward. Professors respond to that very well.
Okay, say that email structure out loud. Greeting, context, I wanted to ask about, thank you, sign off. 5 beats, go. Last one, scenario 3. Your professor has office hours in 20 minutes. You want to go, but you feel like your question is too small, like it's not worth their time. You almost decide not to go, but then you remember what we said today and you go anyway. What do you say when you walk in?
I would walk in and say, Hi, Professor Chen. Thank you so much for having office hours today. Do you have a few minutes? I wanted to ask about something from the lecture earlier this week, just to make sure I understood correctly before I start working on the assignment.
And that opening, do you have a few minutes, immediately signals that you are respectful of their time. You're not assuming they'll drop everything for you. You're asking politely for a small amount of time, and almost every professor will say yes to that.
And once you're in the room, once the conversation has started, it gets so much easier. The hardest part is walking through the door. The language gets you through the door.
The language gets you through the door. That's such a good way to put it. Okay, listeners, go back and say those 3 responses out loud. All 3. The class question, the email structure, the office hours opening. Say them until they feel natural. The shapes stay, the words come from your own situation. All right, wrapping up. Here's your one thing from today. Talking to your professor is not a sign that you're struggling. It's a sign that you're serious. The students who ask questions, send clear emails, and show up to office hours are the ones who get more out of every class. Not because they're smarter, but because they use the tools that are right in front of them. The language is the tool. You now have it. Use it.
And your assignment for this week, send one email to a professor, a teacher, or even a colleague using the structure we talked about today. Greeting, context, I wanted to ask about, thank you, sign off. Just one email. Then drop it in the comments or tell us how it went. We read every single one.
We genuinely do. And if this episode gave you something useful, if it made you feel like you can finally have that conversation you've been avoiding, share it with one student who needs to hear it. Not because it helps us, because that student is sitting in class right now with a question they're too nervous to ask. Be the one who sends this to them.
And if you want more of this every single week, subscribe. We'll be here.
All right. Thank you so much for being here on the Extra Rise English podcast. And remember,
because one serving of English is never enough.
See you in the next episode.